Hello everyone. For years I've been following a YouTuber named MatPat. Like him, I love to theorize about films and games, delve deeper, below the surface, and come up with interesting lore. But there's one franchise that MatPat cannot touch without getting the in-lore facts 100% wrong. Now that I have recording software, I'd like to test it out by responding to both of his videos about Frozen. The first theory I'd like to talk about is his claim that Elsa and Rapunzel are the sisters.
It's not Anna and Elsa who are the sisters, but rather Elsa and Rapunzel. And sure, you may be shaking your head now, but the backing for this theory is real. From the movie's lore to Disney's own information. And if you stick with me, I think you're gonna agree.
Challenge accepted, MatPat. Challenge accepted. In fact, I'm going to limit my sources while I do it. If I don't, I might get lost on tangents. Like how Elsa's milkman skin is due to her magical nature since birth, like Elphaba, who was also voiced by Idina Menzel and sang a song about leaving the shunning society and breaking limits, as well as dozens of other Frozen Wicked parallels that... You know what? I'm already getting sidetracked. No more Wicked, back to the limits of what I can talk about. In general, I'm only allowed to use evidence if it comes from official Disney sources, or if it's something that you've used in one of your videos. It'll be easier for me to prove that you're wrong if I can prove that you're right just about anything other than Frozen. In order for me to disprove that Rapunzel is not a sister, I need to look into the backstory of Elsa herself. This case of mine relies on three major points. First, I have to prove that Elsa's powers do not come from her twinship with Rapunzel. Second, I need to find out who her father is. And third, I need to find her mother. The source of Elsa's powers is pretty obvious. You've even shown it in your video. Don't believe me?
Writers clearly took the time to build in a backstory that justifies her magic instead of it having to come out of nowhere. So, where's the backstory in Frozen? Where's our magical history lesson? Is it laziness? Ever wonder why Agnar and Iduna never show any surprise about Elsa's magical powers?
Did you miss it? Let's look at it again. Can anyone read Old Norse? It's not as simple as How to Train Your Dragon's language, that's for sure. And look at that picture. I wonder who that guy is. Let's find out. Luckily, I found someone online that actually translated all of these words. Since it's kind of long, I decided to just copy and paste them with a little bit of formatting on the left. The part I want to focus on is the fact that the stone with the powers of the moon sky. That is significant. A moon tear outside of Termina gave Elsa her powers. Like with Queen Ariana, yes, that is her name, this king managed to inherit icy powers, but had it repressed and passed down through him. How can I tell he's the king? One, that robe looks really nice. And two, his coat of arms has the same flower as the flags of Arendelle. I doubt that regular soldiers or people from other regions would have that. And look, comparing this picture to what we see on the left, we see the moon sky with the aurora borealis. We see the healing hands of the trolls. We see how he was brought quickly to the trolls and how they either tried to remove the power or couldn't, or seal it within him. And to think that MatPat tried to use this image to prove the trolls were malicious. Now, who did this icy power get passed through? In order to know that, we'd have to figure out who was the coronated ruler of Arendelle, who the person was that would have inherited it from his ancestors in the bloodline down to Elsa. Luckily, as we see here, it's King Agnar. And if we look closely, we'll see that same flower that was on the ancient king's chest, on the orb, the scepter, and the crown. That is triple tying King Agnar to this ancient king. So now we've identified Elsa's powers and Elsa's father. But some smart people might realize that Rapunzel and Elsa can still share a mother if she and King Agnar were in a secret relationship. So let's see if I can find additional facts to help disprove that theory. In order to find the mother, we can use something that you used for Rosalina. Genetics. Just to keep it brief, the dominant capital D allele it will overpower the little d every time it's present. The Punnett square shows the distribution of alleles into the children. While you might not be able to see it, I'll explain it a little more clearly in the next slide. In order to identify Elsa's parents, we need to find a recessive trait of hers that does not have any genes overriding it. Is there such a recessive gene as plain as the nose on Elsa's face? The widow's peak right above it. The widow's peak is a recessive trait. If one parent has one dominant regular round face allele and one widow's peak allele, then he won't show it. Which means that if two such parents got together and had a child, their dominant alleles will override and give their child a round face. Meanwhile, the last fourth child, according to statistics, will not have this dominating allele and will show the widow's peak. Now to see who has or does not have one. Of course, King Frederick has a widow's peak. We can see it more prominently in the cartoon series. He is guaranteed to pass down that trait to Elsa. Unfortunately, we have already determined that he does not have ice magic to pass to Elsa. King Agnar does. However, as we look at his hairline, it's flat. He does not have a widow's peak. But since we can confirm that Elsa is his daughter, we can confirm his alleles to be dominant and recessive. Now to look at the Rapunzel theory. Queen Ariana does not have a widow's peak. Her alleles, in order to have Rapunzel as a child, would have to be dominant recessive. When we look at Queen Iduna, we actually never see her hairline. But if we look at the length of her bangs, we will notice that they are longer in the middle, just like with a widow's peak. We can confirm that she has at least one recessive allele. The fact that she can potentially have two doubles her odds. As shown as the Punnett square, when we replace one of the parents with a double recessive, the dominant trait can only block out half of the children. Which means that if Queen Iduna indeed does have a widow's peak, she has twice the chance of being Elsa's mother as Queen Ariana. So therefore, King Agnar must be the father, and statistically speaking, as well as fidelically, Queen Iduna must be the mother. The second theory that MatPat proposed was that Hans wasn't always meant to be evil. That Hans, as he kind of put it, was retroactively fitted to be the villain when Elsa's character was changed.
Yet, when he and the guards come to Elsa's ice palace looking for Anna, Hans expresses his intention to do the exact opposite. Protect Elsa. We're in the scene when a guard literally has Elsa in his crosshairs. Hans runs over and diverts the shot.
Is that really how you want to interpret that scene, MatPat? Because that scene was the clincher after two other hints that Hans was the bad guy the whole time. I could tell that from the very first viewing of Frozen in theaters. Sure, the words that he said may have seemed innocent, but his actions are much, much louder. Ask yourself this: what is Hans's core? What is his wish, his desire, his defining personality trait? He wants to rule. He said it himself. He's the 13th in line for his own kingdom in the Southern Isles. So he has to find, amongst other things, a kingdom with a narrow, dying out bloodline to marry into. That loss of bloodline, merged with his own, will ensure that he and his children shall reign for the rest of that kingdom's prosperity. I'm not arguing that he's a true villain, that he's evil. I am arguing that his motive, what he is willing to do to reach it, makes him a bad guy. Let's test Zangief's belief. Is it possible for antagonists who seek power or a throne to be benevolent? 3 come to mind easily. The first is Hilda of Lorule. This queen was watching her world literally tear itself apart and sought any Triforce to heal her own world. Dr. Doom might be more relatable to Hans's behavior. While his enemies face his wrath, those who live under Dr. Doom's rule live in peace and prosperity. He truly believes his is the only path to world peace, and his conviction was so strong he was able to convince the mind-reading Wakandan god Bast. If we're going to include Dr. Doom's Latveria as a place of peace, we might as well throw in Magneto's Genosha. While his view of humans isn't good, how he ran his kingdom was to promote intermutant peace. That makes 3 villains with terrifying methods for a benevolent goal. They are heroes to their people and cruel to people who stand in their way. Why can't Hans be any different? So let's take his motivation into account throughout the film. When he first met Anna, his plan was to marry Elsa. He admitted as much to Anna as she froze. But at this point of time, Anna was his future family. He had to impress her, but he had no reason to deceive her either. This reaction right here was very likely sincere. He is not a villain that hates good. He is just a bad guy with a goal. He found Anna sincere. But when he found out that approaching Elsa is treading on thin ice, he changed tactics. Anna already seemed kind of clumsy and infatuated with him. It was just easy chess to take her piece before making a move on Elsa. So to make that play, he spent an entire evening alone with her, courting her to the point of buttering her up. I knew that the sandwich's reaction was dubious the first time I saw it in theaters. It was too unnatural. And Anna was so blind, she fell for it. Next, the Duke of Wesselton's confrontation. At this point, he already had won over Anna. Next, he needed the people. But it wasn't going as smoothly as he hoped. An outsider, the Duke of Wesselton, challenged his authority. And what did Hans reply with? Something that reminded me of Scar's, "I am the king, I can do whatever I want," followed quickly by not hesitating to protect Arendelle from treason. Since the Duke is disobeying the acting ruler, this would be high treason. And as most people know, the consequences of high treason is execution. Finally, with his path to the throne secure in Anna, Prince Hans had to assassinate Elsa. You might not believe me now, but I can show you. Time for a little something called the motive game. The goal of this exercise is to consider 3 potential stereotypes and anticipate how they would respond. For our categories, we have A, the hero, he's a nice guy full of virtue. B, the direct villain, who we'd love to hate. Or C, the schemer, the Scar among humans, the chess master. Now for our scenario. Choice 1. Prince Hans arrives in time to see Elsa and this guard who is getting ready to attack her. He is raising his crossbow. Hans has 3 choices. What will he do? Will he A, save Queen Elsa, B, kill Queen Elsa in front of all of these Arendellian witnesses, or C, distract Elsa, putting her deeper into check?
Queen Elsa! Don't be the monster they fear you are!
Her attention is now on him. She is no longer using her powers, and she's putting her arms down. That is an opening for this guard, but his aim is getting shaky. What does Hans do? If he wants to save the queen, he'll save the queen. If he wants the queen dead, he'll let the guard kill her. But if he is a smart villain, he will stage an accident. What will Hans do? Last time, he chose to be the schemer. Let's see what he does now. But before I start rolling this clip, let me start putting up what he has done so far in this scene on the right. Hans has distracted her from the guard. He looks up at the chandelier before he runs over. He looks up at the chandelier again as he's grabbing the crossbow. And not only is he grabbing the crossbow, look at his left hand. He is grabbing the trigger. He aimed the arrow and shot it himself. What would have happened had Elsa not moved? In conclusion, every single time in this scene, he chose to be a schemer. He was staging an accident to kill Elsa while looking like the hero. That is important. He has to appear like the hero while being the villain. He made an accident rather than a murder because Anna was waiting for him and Elsa back in Arendelle. If the guard had killed Elsa, then the queen would be dead and people would be to blame. But if the accident killed Elsa, here's how things would likely have played out. Prince Hans would have come back with a tragic story. He would be crying or feel sullen. He will apologize to Anna, but because it was an accident and Hans had tried to stop the guard with the bow from directly shooting her, he could be been saving Elsa. He was gaining sympathy points with Anna. And because the guard worked for the Duke, Hans can accuse the guard himself or the Duke for ordering him trying to kill the queen. And of course, he wants the Duke out of the way because he challenged Hans's power earlier and done all these things to make himself an enemy of Arendelle. Due to that accusation, Anna will get mad. Likely the Duke will be banished from Arendelle, and Hans will remain behind to marry Anna and become the prince or future king. My conclusion is that Hans is power hungry. He wanted power so much that he staged an accident. Never mind how pure of a guy he is when he is not driven to get power. He did not have it, and he did whatever it took to get it. And as for the final theory by MatPat, Tarzan.
Get this, when it comes down to it, Tarzan would be next in line. It sounds like a joke, but interviews with the creators of Frozen have confirmed that Anna and Elsa's parents do survive their shipwreck and give birth to Tarzan.
Great, now I have to disprove this too. Luckily, I already did my research for this, and it's nigh impossible. How to disprove the Tarzan connection? First, I have to prove that the director's quote that was quoted was misunderstood. Next, I'll bring up sea travel. The Wonder Woman theory was really good beyond that after all. And finally, I have to determine the timeline for both films, assuming that they are in the same universe. The director's quote is the easiest. Here is the full quote for those that don't know. But if we look at the highlights, in my little head, but on the other side of that island are surfing penguins to tie in a non-Disney movie, Surf's Up. It's my fun little world. There you have it. Either Tarzan the movie takes place on Pengu Island, or it takes place in Africa where there are no piranhas. As for that blustery storm, it is pretty easy to tell. MatPat even suggested it himself hypocritically when he proposed that their ship crashed near Denmark. If we were to draw a line from Denmark to about where Tarzan was, you will get that map. That is a long distance to travel. There is no way that Tarzan could have been shipwrecked near Denmark and yet taken a lifeboat to Africa. And not to mention, no matter where this boat was traveling, it had to be on the seas in one single storm for 6 months. Those 6 months are so that Queen Iduna can be in her first trimester before heading on the ship. However, a final piece of evidence is this portrait right here. This photo was captured while they were wearing English clothing. They did not have that as they were leaving Arendelle. What is the chance that the storm broke? Let them get off in England, let them replace their clothes, let them take the picture, but not let them write home to Elsa, who they know would get ice power freakouts if they were to be gone for too long. and then get back onto a boat and have that boat be stormed all the way to Africa. It does not make any sense. Finally, for the most definitive proof against this theory, the timelines. The first piece of evidence I need to find is a range for Tarzan's age. If I can prove that he is too young or too old to be in both movies, then the theory will be disproven. So in order to determine when both movies are, I need to find their date and ranges. But since the shipwreck was 3 years before Frozen, we have to account for that. And then finally, we can compare those reference ranges to Tarzan's age to tell how plausible his Arendellian heritage is. In order to find the age range for Tarzan, it is actually really, really easy. MatPat said it himself when he was proving Mario could not be the Mario from Donkey Kong.
Series, real-world gorillas have a lifespan of about 40 years, and Cranky has gotta be on the tail end of that. At full size, Cranky would have been about 15, the average age when gorillas stopped growing.
40 years minus 15 to be fully grown is 25. This will allow Kerchak to be at full size, not grow any more as Tarzan did, yet still be alive for Jane to arrive. As for when Jane arrived, Professor Porter tells us himself.
Oh, everyone's going to want to meet you. Kings and scientists and famous writers.
Yes, Darwin and Kipling, Queen Victoria.
Darwin, Kipling, and Queen Victoria. This very specific time frame proves to us that Professor Porter knew Kipling as a student. How do we know that? Because Darwin died before Kipling was famous. Professor Porter could have only given that time frame if he knew Kipling as a United Service College student from 1878 to 1882. So there we have it. That's our time range. Now we just need to do the same for Frozen and compare the two. But this one might be a little harder. After all, no famous people are alluded to during this movie. Let's start with the easiest. A year or a year range. It might be hard to figure out. We'll have to look into technology, fashion, architecture. It's not like Frozen Fever will just simply show it to us on a map in the top left corner. Well, that came out of nowhere. A date in Roman numerals in the top left corner of Frozen Fever's map. Translating that into modern English, and we've got a year of 1840. Surely our luck will not be as smooth as with the month. I mean, we know it's going to be summer due to in summer, but is there a specific...
Monster! It's snowing! It's snowing in the middle of July!
It's snowing in the middle of July? Oh, lucky us, we're on a roll. Wait a minute. July is over half a year gone. It's entirely possible that Anna's birthday in Frozen Fever takes place in January through June. If that was true, then the year of the coronation would actually be 1839. Is it possible for us to absolutely confirm that Frozen Fever, which takes place after Frozen, was in 18...
I'm excited too, Olaf. This is Arendelle's first Christmas in forever. The first of many to come.
The first Christmas since the castle gates opened in Frozen. And if we assume that Olaf's Frozen adventure takes place after Frozen Fever, this confirms that Anna's birthday is after Elsa's birthday in July. Therefore, July of 1840 must be the year and month that the coronation occurred. Let's go even crazier. Can we find the day? I mean, there is absolutely no way there can be... They don't mention any dates in the movie. We don't see any calendars. This should be absolutely oh, come on. Really? Look at that. Who needs a Gregorian calendar when, like clockwork, Disney has given us a lunar calendar? There is a full moon on the day of the coronation. Now, for the moment of truth. If I cannot prove that the full moon of July 1840 is in the middle of the month, then my jigsaw puzzle logic will be busted. Luckily, I found a lunar calendar calculator online. Let's hope for the best. It's on the 14th. It is on the 14th. It is 1 day away from the middle of July. Theory confirmed. Frozen must take place in that very specific day. It is July 14th, 1840. I'm so excited. I'm going to indulge and get a little sidetracked right now. I'm going to let that sink in. Norway in the 1830s had commercial steamboats. They had telegram cables and trunk line railway by 1855. Anna can see steamboats right now and is 15 years away from telegrams and trains. Let that sink in. Now that we have the date of 1840, we can extrapolate 3 years beforehand for the shipwreck to occur in 1837. If Tarzan was born of Arendellian blood, he would have to be born in 1837. Now live for the moment of truth. Those math whizzes out there probably took that long time on the previous page to do the math themselves. But 1878 minus 1837 is 41 years. 41 years. Kerchak cannot live to see Jane. Turkina could not live to see Jane. It is literally impossible for Tarzan to have been born the brother of Elsa and still meet Jane when they came. Theory 100% debunked. There you have it. 3 Frozen theories, all 3 debunked. I suppose there are several things we can learn from this. Theorizing requires an open mind. If you can't find a piece of evidence one way, approach the problem from a different angle. And you can learn a lot the further you dig. Thanks for watching, everybody. Any comments on how MatPat or myself did while making our videos? Have a great day, keep your mind open, and keep bright eyes open for the future.